Hey everyone, it's Miss Dennison. Welcome back. I heard really good things from Miss White about your memory presentations and your evaluations. So I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person. I've been trying to put names to faces on Skyward this whole time. So I'm really excited to come back in a couple of weeks. And today we're actually going to move forward into the rest of our theater basics unit. So this first lesson is going to be on the different types of stages, stage directions, and body positions. So today we're going to learn about, just some of the common types of stages that you'll see in theater, and then blocking positions, which is basically the areas of the stage that I would tell my actors to go. Those of you that are watching in my tech class, you'll see, hopefully as we go along, why this is important for you as a technician to know. Not gonna lie, I am recording this very late at night, so not to worry. I've got my water here. Hopefully you have your water too, or coffee or whatever. I probably should drink a cup. And then I've got the notes page that you guys actually have in class. I have that here with me too, so I'll be referencing that if you see me looking towards the side of the screen. That's what I'm looking at. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So it's been a while since we have done this, but let's just go ahead and make sure that everyone in class has had time to do the bell ringer. Let's make sure that attendance has been taken, and then let's go ahead and write 3 good things on your bell ringer sheet. My 3 good things for today are my son, who's in kindergarten. He's actually going to start in-person school next week. And so today we went and got him his school supplies, and I won't be able to be with him his first day of school, of in-person school, because he'll be at his dad's house. And so we got to have that moment together today. Let's see, I'm getting a haircut next week, so I'll have new hair when you see me in person. And I bought myself a really cool blow dryer. Yeah, those are my 3 things. Oh, and my husband gave me flowers and chocolates just 'cause. So those are my 3 good things. And then the word of the day, since we are talking about the different types of stages, the word of the day is going to be stage. So surely by the end of this, you'll be able to come up with your own definition. All right, next we're going to go over the word from last presentation, which was critique, since you did a peer evaluation either on Flipgrid for my virtual students or on the evaluation sheet that Miss White gave you in class. So the definition that we have for critique, hopefully yours that you came up with on your exit ticket is similar. The definition for critique is a formal written discussion of a performance of a play or musical. So very similar to your evaluations that you gave, it's where you're critically looking at someone's performance. I mean, that's the long and short of it. So hopefully your definition is the same. Hopefully you understand how that is important, and also that's something that we're going to continuously do in class so that we can keep each other in check, right? But then also help each other become more successful. All right, my water break is good to go. We can go ahead and get started. All right, lots of information coming at you. This first stage that you're going to see here is called the proscenium stage. This type of stage is the most common among theaters, auditoriums. It's just when you think of a theater, this is typically the layout that you think of. LCM auditorium is a proscenium stage. So that's something that you need to remember for your test. But just from now on, every time you walk into the auditorium, you think, oh, that's a proscenium stage, right? So I like to break down words so to kind of get their origin, and it helps me remember not only the pronunciation of the word, but the meaning of the word. So let's discuss it. Yep, in fact, it's what we have at our school. Technology and I aren't getting along. So the ancient Greeks are the ones who gave us the idea of theater, right? And so with it, they became, they developed the word proscenium. So it's one of the divisions of the stage, and we'll talk about which part is the division here in a minute. But if we break down the word, the beginning of it, pro, means in front of, and skene means seen. So put it all together, the proscenium is the part in front of the scenery, right? So it's a barrier between the actors on stage and the audience. And that invisible barrier is what's called the fourth wall. And it's a common thing in theater, just like when you're watching a movie, right? And you're watching this movie, and I think of like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Maybe, I hope some of you have seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But when you watch the film, they engage with the people. Ferris engages with the people on the, in the movie with him, and then he cuts to the audience, right? As if he's telling the audience the secret or whatever his internal thoughts are, he's telling them out loud. That is a nice visual example of breaking the fourth wall, right? When actors do that intentionally on stage, it feels like we as the audience members are having this nice intimate moment with the actors and really becoming a part of the story. And so that's what it means by the fourth wall. Now, we do have some newbie actors when they're performing with a person on stage and we tell them, hey, don't break the fourth wall. This is what they do. They're like, well, hey, I thought that was a really nice time. They start playing to the audience because they're wanting to get like some sort of audience laugh or response or elicit some sort of something from the audience. And what ends up happening is that they look ridiculous, right? They look like, first of all, it makes the audience uncomfortable, but second, it just looks like they're not genuinely a part of the story. They're just there to entertain or just try to get a rise out of people, which is not what acting is about, right? Those of us that truly love the art of it. So that's what the fourth wall is, and that's what that proscenium is protecting, is that fourth wall. So when we keep going, the proscenium is the frame that you see. Look, I'm using my finger and I'm drawing because y'all can't see that. This red that I drew on here, it is the frame around the stage that looks through to see the play, right? So here's the barrier. The audience is looking through onto the stage to see this arch. Can you look? I bet this is driving y'all crazy, all this stuff. Ooh, okay. Maybe I've had too much coffee today, but hopefully that makes sense for you. So when you go into our auditorium, and you look at our stage, yes, it's a proscenium stage, but the arch is actually the exposed brick that you see framing the stage, even up at the top. That exposed brick, that is our version of a proscenium arch. Okay, guys, so now we are going to label the parts of the stage. We have a bird's eye view of the stage. We're labeling this stage because once you learn the different areas of a proscenium stage, and you can go onto any other stage and knock it out of the park, right? The director will tell you to go somewhere and you'll know exactly where he's talking about because you learned parts of the proscenium stage. So first, we're going to talk about things from the perspective of the audience member because the audience's perspective and the actor's perspective are completely opposite. So let's pretend that we are at the back of the auditorium, right? We have those wooden doors back there and they are filing people in and they're getting ready for an assembly, okay? They tell you that you need to go, you need to sit in the middle. That's usually what the common phrase is. Those of us that aren't in theater, they say sit in the middle. okay? In theater, we call that center house, okay? Reason why it's called a house. Remember we talked about the frame, right? The frame is that window into the story, into what it is you're watching, okay? So you're coming into the house, you're sitting in the house and looking through the window, right? You get the analogy? Hopefully that makes sense for you. So if they tell you to go into the middle as an audience member, go to the middle, you're sitting center house. Hopefully you remember that next time there's an assembly. If you come in for the assembly and they say, go to the right, well, that one's pretty simple. You're going to go, oh, I said it backwards. If they tell you go to the left, you're going to go house left, right? Because from your perspective as an audience member, that is your left. So therefore it would make sense that that is called house left. And then of course, if they told you to go to the right, you would go house right. Okay, so we're good so far. All right, let's say the assembly involves live music. Okay, that'd be a really cool assembly, first of all. Where is that located? That is located in the pit. Okay, this is the orchestra pit. We do not have one of these at LCM. Okay, if you go into the auditorium and you see like where center is and then the edge of the stage, there's that nice big gap in between. That would be where we would have to have our orchestra pit. Okay, generally, I'm trying to think who has an orchestra pit where you can see it. I believe the Hobby Center in Houston has an orchestra pit, if I remember correctly, and also Lamar University, where we do UIL, they have an orchestra pit. But typically a lot of modern day theaters, they have their pits underneath the stage, and then they just Bluetooth and or use television screens to see what their actors are doing. But you've seen it in movies where, you know, the conductor is standing in front and then they're looking up, seeing the actors. They are standing in the pit. Okay, this thin line right down here, okay, the thin line, we're not talking about the thick line. The thin line is the front edge of the stage, or what I call the lip of the stage, right? You don't want to stand on it because you will fall, you will hurt yourself. And then, oh, we're going to skip that. The thick line that you see here, right, this right here, oh, that was way big of a circle. This is called the proscenium arch, right? We've already talked about this. That's that frame, okay? So again, I'm just telling you things you already know. Repetition, repetition, okay? We're going to ignore what my Bitmoji said here in just a minute. We'll go back to her. But this is called the apron. And you know, I actually don't know why it's called an apron. I have it written down as I was recording the video and reviewing everything. I was like, why the heck is it called an apron? All my years in college, and I never learned that. So I'm going to do some research, and when I get back, I'm going to tell you why it's called an apron. If you notice this red line that you see, this is called the curtain line. So what the apron is it's that additional bit of stage from the curtain line. So when the large grand drape is fully closed, so that gap, that bit of stage between the curtain line, the grand drape, and the front of the stage, the lip of the stage. So hopefully that makes sense for you. But I do want to come up, find out the reason why it's called an apron. Maybe that'll help you remember the term. Okay. And then I put proscenium arch on here again, just to help signify again what it is. So we've got everything from the perspective of the audience. Okay. Now let's talk about this perspective of the actors. Remember, I said that it is completely opposite from an audience member's perspective. Okay. So as the Bitmoji says, the directions on a stage for an actor are from their left and their right, okay? It is from their point of view. Okay. If you flip over on the back of your note sheet, it actually says the directions of left and right are from the actor's point of view. That is what you need to write there, the actor's point of view. Okay. Flipping that back over to label it, we've got our Bitmoji here. She's standing here. Okay. And the director needs her to go off stage, right? And they say, we need you to come, we need you to exit and end up over here, okay? My Bitmoji is going to exit to her right, okay? So this right here, this area, this waiting area is the right wing. So when we go into the auditorium in a couple of weeks, you will see our very narrow wings, and that is essentially an area for people to wait for their cue to get ready to get out on stage. And so then if that's the right wing, then this over here is the left wing. Okay? Okay. Sorry, I had to go take a break and take care of my kiddos. Okay, so we have the right wing, and we have the left wing, right? Now, maybe you just need to move to a certain area of the stage, okay? Same thing, right? If they tell you to move to the right, guess what? You're gonna move stage right. What I'm gonna do too is I'm gonna go ahead and draw a sort of grid. Oh, that was bad. Let me erase that. My computer's freezing up on me, so I think it's doing one thing and it does another. Stage right is here. Oh my gosh, these lines are bad. And then stage left, you see, is there left. Oh, that is a terrible, terrible line. We're making it work though. All right, so hopefully my terrible drawings do not distract you. But you see here, it's the same thing. It's your left and your right as the actor. So if they tell you to move stage left, you would go to your left. Stage right, you would go to your right. Now let's talk about some directions that you might have. But before we get into the directions, we have to talk about how the names of these directions came to be. So during the Italian Renaissance, right? That's a huge, huge point in time for theater history. They were really focused on scenic design, and with scenic design and with theater in general, you know, always trying to create some sort of magic. Or for a scenic designs perspective, they like to create what's called a false perspective, making things appear larger than they actually are. So someone got the bright idea to elevate the back of the stage, okay, and make it looked very similar to a rake. So we call it a raked stage. So it's an elevated stage where the back of the stage is higher than the front of the stage. So not only did this give a false perspective of making the stage look larger than it actually was, but it also allowed more stage for the actors to play on and being able to perform on. And it also, if you were a audience member watching everything, you would be able to see all the action. Think about when you go to the movies, right? The screen is down here and you're elevated, because if you were on the same plane as the screen, right, and say the screen was shorter, okay, and somebody really tall was sitting in front of you, okay, you wouldn't be able to see as much. But if it's elevated, you're able to see everything. Everyone's able to see everything. So in theater, it got flipped, right? Audience was ground level, stage was raked so that you could see all of the action on stage, okay? So if an actor say my little Bitmoji was an actress in the Italian Renaissance, and the director told her that she needed to go backwards, okay, she would literally have to climb up a hill, right, to go backwards, okay? Say she was at the top of that hill, okay? And then the actor said you need to get closer to the audience, okay? In theater, to move closer to the audience is to move downstage, okay? Because, like I said, if she's at the top of the stage, she's up away from the audience, okay? She's going down a hill, or she was going down a hill. She's not anymore, but she was going down a hill and moving down towards the audience, okay? So that's why we call it downstage. And so say you come downstage and then they say, no, we liked it better when you were up there. Guess what? You're going to move upstage. You're going to move up on the stage, up away from the audience. So those are the directions that we typically have with a proscenium stage. Those are the directions we typically tell our actors to go. And we're going to get into specifics here in just a little bit. And then this right here, I'm going to just put a circle right there. That itty bitty circle right there is what I call, and what most of us call, dead center or center stage. That's typically where actors feel like they need to go, especially new actors. And if you walk into our auditorium, which you will in a couple of weeks, you'll see that we actually have a giant circle in the center of the stage. And so that giant circle, it's a really nice viewpoint to let my kids know where they need to stand on stage. But like I said, a lot of people think that this is the strongest position on stage when it's actually right here, right there at the edge of the stage, downstage. Downstage center, that is the strongest position on the stage. Remember that. Downstage center is the strongest position on stage. That will be a bonus point, a bonus question for you. You're welcome. All right, let's move on. Okay, so before we get into our quiz, one thing that I did not talk about with you is this square right here. I realized that after I recorded, but I really liked my recording, so I did not go back and record it. This, if I can write it properly, this is called backstage, right? This is the term that you're probably the most familiar with. Y'all, I cannot write on this thing. If you know anything about theaters at all, maybe you've done a recital and you've had to run backstage, right? Ooh, that's bad. Backstage. Look at that handwriting. But let's go ahead and give you a quiz. What I would do after you write backstage in the appropriate box, I want you to flip your notes pages over so you can't see what we just labeled. And let's see how much you know just right off the bat. Think about some of the tools that I was telling you to help you remember these different areas of the stage. Okay, so my little Bitmoji, where is she standing? If you guessed apron, you are correct. Now, I know that the curtain line, here's my bad drawing again, but the curtain line is, if you remember, is right there, okay? So keep that in mind whenever you're thinking. That apron is that little bit of stage that separates the grand drape from the front of the stage. Let's keep going. I always get impatient with this thing, and so I like to click, 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 and yeah, things pop up quickly. So I'm trying to avoid that. All right, where is she standing now? If you look, we see the black dotted line, so that tells me that she is not on stage where the audience can see her. Plus we've got the proscenium arch that's covering her right here. So she must be, let's see, she's an actor, right? So if it's from her perspective, she is in the right wing, okay? Remember, it's from her perspective. I'm gonna take a water break while we do this. All right, where's my girl standing now? Well, if this is the edge of the stage, we covered that this was the apron. And so if this right here is the edge of the stage, then that tells me she's off stage, okay? So she is standing in what is called the pit. All right, hopefully you remembered that. All right, where she's standing now, remember it's from her perspective as an actor. So that means she is standing stage left. Very good. Okay, we talked about that the stage back in the day was elevated, so they would have to climb a hill, right? So when you climb a hill, you were going up. So in the theater, if they tell you to go up, you are going up stage, up away from the audience. Let's see. I forgot where she goes. Okay, so we've already decided that this right here is stage left. So this must be stage right, right? Because it's from her perspective. That's her left, her right. Y'all like my messy playroom back here with all my kids' toys? And then here. Now, don't pay attention to the blue box, okay? Where's her body positioned? Well, her body's positioned where I told you, center stage. Remember, she's dead center. Okay? She's not dead center. Dead center is really right here. But this general area of the stage is center stage. And we're gonna, like I said, get into specifics here shortly. But hopefully you remembered a lot. I'm curious to see how much you remembered. Oh, I forgot about this one. Okay, now notice my girl is positioned right here. We know she's in the audience, right? Because we've got the orchestra pit here. We know she's in the audience, but wait, she's not facing the stage, okay? That's intended to trick you, but guess what? Don't let it, because she is standing house right, okay? House right is right here. House right. Okay? So hopefully you got that. These are things that we are going to be going over once I get back. And also, these are things that you need to know for your test. So the sooner that you become familiar with these and review these, the better for you. So let us move forward. All right, let's go ahead and take a water break. So me and my little guy here, we're standing on stage, and if you notice that everything is in sort of like a grid, okay? So we have initials associated with each movement. If you look farther down in your notes, there's a part of the notes called thrust stage. And it has this grid laid out for you. I would encourage you, go ahead and write the initials that we have here. Go ahead and write those next to their different grids. So you are upstage right. This back here is upstage center, write UC. I'm also fine if you write U, oh Lord. See, I need to get like one of those pens where I can write while I'm on the computer. I'm also fine if you write USC for upstage center. But UC is typically the abbreviation. And then UL for upstage left, you've got center stage, so that's dead center, that's CS. left or center left CL, down left from LR, downstage center. This is incorrect, Ashley. This should be, y'all look how straight that line is. That's never going to happen again. D, C. Golly, that's terrible. DC, or you can do DSC. Don't make me write it because it's bad. But DC for downstage center, and then DR for down right, R for right, or CR for center right, okay? Remember, these stage directions are from the actor's perspective, okay? So then remember, you're never going to use these abbreviations that I'm about to mention, but if I'm an audience member, okay, then this is house center, right? So then where is house right? Over here, right? Because it's from the audience's perspective. That is terrible. My son could write better than that. And then this over here is house left. Okay? That looked better. I'm good with, I'm pleased with that one. But hopefully you've got this written down, and this is just a nice shorthand to have so that if you, later on in the year when I have you guys doing blocking, those can be the blocking notes rather than writing upstage right. You could just write you are, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so we're about 35 minutes in. You might see my cat try to walk across the computer screen. If you need to take 5 minutes, go ahead and have Miss White pause the video and stretch and do whatever, because we're still rocking and rolling with this thing. So we're going to get through the rest of it pretty quickly, but go ahead and take 5 minutes if you need to. I'm going to sip some coffee if you decide not to take 5 minutes. There she goes. There she goes. And see, she knows I won't pick her up because I'm secretly afraid of her. Even though we own a cat, I feel like cats are satanic. See, she knows I won't lift her. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. Watch, this is going to distract you the whole time. So we're going to talk about the different types of curtains real quick on a proscenium stage. You don't have to write anything, but we're going to start with the furthest back, or the furthest up stage, which is going to be back here with the backdrop, okay? So the backdrop, everything in our auditorium is what we call dead hung. So that means that it can't like fly in. You probably go to theaters and you see things flown in. They have a rigging system. They have a fly system. We do not have that. Our everything on our stage is dead hung. So they are dead hung on battens, and battens are the metal poles that are holding all of those things in place, okay? So this backdrop right here is dead hung on a batten, as you can see. And then, oh, get out of my way. Get out of my coffee. You're driving me crazy. Okay. No. No. Okay. Look, she's messing up my computer. Okay. So we've got the backdrop, and then headed downstage, we have what's called the borders. The borders are intended to, all of these curtains really are intended to mask and mask things, right? So the borders are intended to cover the battens. They're intended to cover the sight lines, okay? So that's what this one here, and this one here is intended to do. And the teaser, I'm not entirely sure why it's called a teaser. That is another piece of information that I plan on looking up. But this one right here, this is, I have it labeled on your notes as the tormentor. I don't like that term. I typically call it the legs. And so I want you to actually cross out tormentor and put legs. All of these curtains are intended to mask, cover things up, and then also sight lines, right? So if an audience member, if someone is standing in the legs, right, they're standing in the wings and they are watching, you know, we want them to be covered up. If they're waiting in the left wing, we want them to be covered up. We don't want the audience to see what is happening backstage, because 9 times out of 10 it's crazy. And so these curtains are intended to mask what's going on backstage. And then this curtain back here, this black one that's going horizontally, this one is intended, it is a leg, it's a wing to cover. A lot of your larger theaters have that. We don't have that. So you'll probably never see that unless you go and perform at a different stage. So those are the types of curtains associated with the proscenium. Okay, so again, since this slide, you don't have to write anything down, we're not going to spend too long on it. But what does a proscenium stage have that other stages don't? Well, it has a left and a right wing. So remember, that's off stage. That's where the audience can't see you, okay? It also has a main drape, or what we call the grand drape. Has an apron, right? It's that little bit of stage between the grand drape and the lip of the stage. It has an orchestra pit, and the audience is seating only on one side, right? They're sitting in the house, and that's their only viewpoint. That's the only place for them to look. So that those are really the main differences between a proscenium and the other stages that we'll be covering today. Okay, guys, so our next stage is called a thrust stage. It has an audience on 3 sides of the stage. Okay, so rather than from one perspective, it's from 3 perspectives. My Bitmoji is moving a little bit fast, so I'm going to go over everything that she has said here. But if you notice that house is sitting here, okay, this would be house left, house center, house, this would be house left, make sure y'all can see that. This would be house center, and this would be house right, okay? Notice the stage directions are still the same. You have this picture in your notes too, okay? So from the actor's perspective, this is still their stage right, okay? This is still their stage left. When looking at this setup, notice that it has no pit, okay, has no grand drape, right, has no wings, and it has no apron. These steps do not count as the apron. It doesn't even have the proscenium arch like the proscenium stage does. To fill in the blank for your, oh, didn't mean to do that. To fill in the blank for your last little bit on the notes, it does still use upstage, right? You still use upstage right, center, left, downstage, stage right, stage left, and it has a backstage, which the backstage is, let me do white so you can see it. This is the backstage area right here, and he's white. Simple enough. This type of stage is super flexible, and it's typically common in black box theaters. So much smaller theaters. Our classroom would be considered a black box theater. It meets all the qualifications of a black box. I would love one day to actually perform in the classroom and have performances in there, but that is a 5-year goal. So, so that's typically where you would see this type of stage. All right, let's see if you can guess where she is standing. Okay, on a thrust stage. If you guessed center stage, you are correct, right? You should be getting the hang of this by now. I'm hoping you get the hang of this by now. But the center stage does not change because it is literally in the center of the stage. Let's see where she goes next. Okay. So remember, this is from the actor's perspective, okay? So where did she go? Okay, she started out center. She started out, let me draw my X. She started out right here, okay? She went up stage, right? So she went up away from the audience, okay? And then to her left, okay? So upstage left. Hopefully you're getting this. Oh man, I can't wait to work on this in person with you guys and see how much you know. All right, from here. So in a proscenium stage, she would be at the edge of the stage, but we don't have an apron, right? We don't have an edge of the stage. I mean, we do, but we don't really discuss it. She is standing from here. If she started out center, she would have gone down stage, so down towards the audience, and to her right. So down right. That's where she is. Are y'all getting this? I really do hope. There's a nice fun game that I play to help with stage directions, and hopefully y'all can be like my best group ever. Oh, why did I do that one twice? I hate when I do that. Okay, well done. Look at all those scribbles on her face. All right, we're going to move forward and let's do some comparing and contrasting of the two stages. All right, so if we were to break it down, compare and contrast between the proscenium stage and the thrust stage, first let's start with the proscenium only. Remember, the proscenium has left and right wings, so it has an offstage area, right? But really the wings, right? Those curtains that help divide the different divisions. That's what it has only. It has a main drape or a grand drape. There is no grand drape in a thrust. Has an apron, right? These are things that we've already gone over. We're kind of reviewing. We're reviewing. And it can have an orchestra pit. Remember, ours is a proscenium stage, but it does not have an orchestra pit. And then the audience seating is only on one side of the stage. Okay, so then if we were to compare both stages, we know that both of them, right, have a backstage, right? So have a backstage to go to either side. They both use up and down stage, stage right and left for directions. And guys, I know that this is small on your notes. Just do the best you can, you know, use abbreviations if you have to, whatever's good for you. And then they both have a house and or audience, right? And the house and the audience, whenever they are seated, it is from the audience's perspective. Okay, now for thrust, remember the thrust, audience is sitting. Audience seating is on three sides of the stage. There are no wings, right? There's no waiting areas for the actors. There's no grand drape. There's no apron. There's no pit. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, we've gone over all of this, so you should be able to remember these well. Okay, so the next stage that we're going to talk about is called the arena stage. Okay, this stage is sometimes called in the round. Okay, so that would be your second bullet point under arena stage. Sometimes called in the round. And the reason why it's sometimes called that is because sometimes it's circular, so therefore it's round. The majority of the time it's square. But keep in mind that in an arena stage, no matter what the shape it is, whether it's circular or square, there is audience members on all four sides. Okay, so the audience is seated all around the stage on all four sides. Okay, and it can also be circular. Okay, you have probably seen the arena stage like Houston Rodeo, the Toyota Center in Houston, Ford Park there in Beaumont, even just football stadiums, NFL, NBA, right? Not so much MLB, even though they are trying to, with the diamond shape, it's really hard to have that same sort of space. But sporting events are where you most often see this type of stage. Okay. So when we are trying to direct our actors in an arena stage, there's two, ignore my Bitmojis, I made these at 3 a.m. So there's two different directions that we will give our actors. Okay. We'll give them the stage directions either from a map perspective or from a clock perspective. It really just depends on who we're working with. So if you notice here, let's do light blue. Okay, if you notice here, if my person is standing center and we're doing from a map perspective, then you notice you have your compass here. Never eat sour watermelon, right? So if they're at the center of the compass and we need them to go northwest, then they would move this way. If we want them to go east, they would move to their typically stage left, right? Okay, but north is at the top, right? So you can't think that this is the main audience, right? Because audience is all around. So if we were just looking at a compass, north is at the top, so therefore north is here, east is here, south is here, and west is here. Same thing with the clock, right? If we are the center of the clock and they say, hey, go to your 2 o'clock, you're going to go here. If they say, hey, I've heard them say make a 2:30. So if there were 2 people centered, then a 2:30 would be, one would be positioned here, and then the other would be positioned here to give the illusion of a clock. So map and clock are the two ways directors can give stage directions in an arena stage. Okay, so since the proscenium stage is our main stage, I did want to give you a compare and contrast to the proscenium stage and the arena stage. And so in your notes, I have this already written out for you. Go ahead and look at it and study it because you will need to at least know what arena has and what they even have similar and just what some of the differences are, okay? Next slide. Is we're going to talk about the traverse stage. This one is the least it's the least common, right? If I could give a real life example of a traverse stage, would be our football field, right? Because you've got the home side, you've got the visitor side. The acting area on a football field is obviously the field, and then the backdrop or projection, you could say, would be the Jumbotron, right? Would be the scoreboard. So it's a stage where the audience sits on 2 sides, and they say it's good for creating an intimate atmosphere. Personally, I think the thrust stage is, but that's just generally what the idea is behind it. Okay, so now that we've covered all the stages, we're getting into the body positions. Okay, so you've got stage directions where people go, but once they get to those points, where do they need to be positioned? That's what we're going to cover next. All right, so now we're going to talk about actor body positions. These are intended for both proscenium and thrust stages. If you look on here, you've got a nice circle. Okay, I'm going to draw this circle out. The director has told you what area to fall into, right? Go upstage right. That's great, but what is your body position? Your body position is so important on stage because you want to make sure that the light is hitting hitting you at the appropriate mark. You want to make sure that the audience can see you and see whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing. And so the way that an actor is on stage is just crucial to making sure that they are seen and also heard. So we're going to talk first about the full positions. And what I mean by that is that if we were to make this circle, right, if we were to visualize this circle, these are full positions. There's no angles. They're facing, the entire body is facing one way. We're going to actually start, our bullet points are a little out of order, so I apologize. We're going to start with full back, okay? The full back position is where the actor is facing backstage, right? So their back is to the audience. This is something in theater that we say no to unless it calls for it in the scene. And you'll know too as you move on. There may be a scene where that another actor has to break the fourth wall and have a conversation with the audience, and so the partner of that their scene partner maybe faces backstage while they're having that moment with the audience, and then resumes and comes back into the scene when the actor's done talking to the audience. So that may be an instance where full back is an appropriate position, but typically we don't do this on stage. So if you have full back, then obviously the next one would be full front. Okay, so the actor faces the audience dead on, right? Dead on, no angles, no nothing. You see them, everything is there. Okay, so notice the guy, he's standing there. You see all of his body, not just parts of his body. You see all of his body. He is facing full front. So now that we've covered the fulls, let's get into the profiles, okay? So the profiles, I'm going to highlight those in yellow. The profiles are located right here and right here. And what the profiles are going to be the positions in these directions, if you will, that only give you one side of an actor. Think of it as like, I kind of think of it as mug shots, right? When they take they're here and they go here and they hold the thing. That's what I think of when I think of profile. We're going to start with profile left. Okay, so that means the actor is facing their left, right? They're facing offstage left. Okay, they call it the half turn, but I say profile left because that's just easier to remember. And plus, when other people and judges and critiques, they're telling you like your true profile, what that means is, notice here, if her head was facing, oh gosh, terrible line, but if her head was facing that way, we would only see one side of her face, right? We would only see the right side of her face. We wouldn't be able to see her face at all. So she would have to turn her head like she is in the picture. But that's a half step turn from a full position. So that's why it's called a half. So if profile left is facing offstage left, then profile right is going to face offstage right. And notice here he is doing his head like I talked about. Okay. All right, so then we've talked about the halves, we've talked about the fulls, so let's break it down into fourths, okay? We're going to start with quarter. A quarter left turn is in between a full turn and a half turn, okay? The quarter left turn, what that does is it angles the actor to the left and still keeps them open to the audience, meaning that their body is still open to the audience. So if I'm looking at you center and the director says go a quarter left, right? I'm just going to slightly turn my body this way. Notice that you can still see both of my shoulders, you can still see my full face, versus profile where you only see one side, okay? Quarter, you still are able to see everything and the audience can fully see what it is I'm trying to do, Now with her shoulders being like that, it's hard. That's not a very good body position for her to tell, but for the most part, you should be able to see her full body. Okay, so then if we have a quarter left, because it's on the left side of the stage, then we have a quarter right. Right? This is where the actor is angled to the right and they are open to the audience. Notice her body positioning is way more open than that other girl's, and so you are able to see her shoulders, her arms, her full face. Okay, so we've broken it down into, we went from full, we went from half, we went from quarter. Now let's go, I'm going to change this color to red. Let's go to 3/4. Okay, so these are more negative positions. These are positions on the stage where, as we're edging towards a full back position, you are closing yourself off to the audience. So the first one is the 3/4 right position. This is where 3/4 of your body, right, is angled to the right and closed off to the audience. Notice here, you only really see the left arm and the left side of her body. Okay, that actually looks like blood since I picked red. So then, and it's located on the right side of the stage, right? Because stage right is from her right. And then if we have 3/4 right, then obviously we're going to have 3/4 left. This is where the actor is angled to the left and closed to the audience, meaning you are only going to see the right side of her body, okay? And she is turned a little bit slightly to the audience, but for the most part, her body is closed off to the audience, okay? So the next slides after this, this completes the end of your notes. The next slides after this, we're actually going to review once I get back to school. So I'm actually going to send us over to the exit ticket. So let's go ahead and get there now. Let's see. I'm gonna move through these quickly. Hopefully you don't remember them, because I'll quiz you in a couple of weeks. Boop, boop, boop. All right, so we're gonna go into our exit ticket. Remember, your exit ticket is located in your binders with your bell ringer form, but go ahead and answer these 3 questions. If Ms. White needs to pause the video so you can see the questions, that would be great. Hopefully you got all of these notes, because in a few weeks you will have your 6 weeks exam, and a lot of the things that are covering the test is what we discussed today, what we discussed tomorrow, next class period, and what we discuss your next class period. So I hope you learned something new today. I hope you were able to retain the information today. We're going to be applying it when I get back in a couple of weeks, and I look forward to our next class together. Thanks so much, guys.